Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Jaya Gopinana Mallava Girivardhari Jaya. Jaya Gopinana Mallava Girivardhari Jaya. Nana Mujana Randana Yasudanandana Mujana Randana Yasudanandana Mujana Randana Yamuna Tera Banachari Yamuna Tera Banachari Yamuna Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Panchatata Panchatata
Astatara Sata Sri Sriman, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nityalila Pravista Ram Vishnupad, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadha, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shyamakunda, Radhakunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, this is not going to work, I don't think. Let me try. All right, just make some adjustments here. All right. What's happening here? Okay, I don't think this is going to work. If you've got like a pillow or something, I can put this on. Unfortunately. My apologies. This sometimes takes a little while to get the proper posture here. Anyway, we're on Canto 1, Chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home, text 26. So there may be some interruptions here at some point, but we'll see how we do. So text 26, Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Abhigyata Gati Jayat Sa Vai Dhira Udaritaha Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidira Udarita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidira Udarita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhanaha Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidira Udarita Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhana Avigyata. I'm not sure if you put them this way, that way. Yeah. Watch that water. Thank you. Ladies. Gata Swartam Imam Deham Virakto Mukta Bandhana Avigyata Gatir Jayat Savaidira Udarita. Somebody else? Another one. Any other lady? Just one will do. Somebody chant. You don't know how to chant the Sanskrit? Gata swartam imam deham virakto mukta bandhana avigyata gati jayat savaidira udarita. Thank you. Gata swartam, without being properly utilized. Imam, this. Deham, material body. Viraktaha, indifferently. Mukta, being freed. Bandhanaha, from all obligations. Avigyata gatihi, unknown destination. Jayat, one should give up this body. Sa, such a person. Vai, certainly. Diraha, undisturbed. Udaritaha, is said to be so. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown, remote place and, freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. Please repeat. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown, remote place and, freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur, a great devotee and acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava sect, has sung, "My Lord, I have simply wasted my life. Having obtained the human body, I have neglected to worship your Lordship, and therefore I have willingly drunk poison." In other words, the human body is especially meant for cultivating knowledge of devotional service to the Lord, without which life becomes full of anxieties and miserable conditions. Therefore, one who has spoiled his life without such cultural activities is advised to leave home without knowledge of friends and relatives, and being thus freed from all obligations of family, society, country, etc., give up the body at some unknown destination, so that others may not know where and how he has met his death. Dhira means one who is not disturbed, even when there is sufficient provocation. One cannot give up a comfortable family life due to his affectionate relationship with wife and children. Self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for family, and if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, he is called undisturbed or dhira. This is, however, the path of renunciation based on a frustrated life, but stabilization of such renunciation is possible only by association with bona fide saints and self-realized souls, by which one can be engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord. Sincere surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is possible by awakening transcendental sense of service. This is made possible by association with the pure devotees of the Lord. Dhritarashtra was lucky enough to have a brother whose very association was a source of liberation for this frustrated life. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown remote place and, freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. Well, you can sign me up for that one. Okay, so this is the advice, as Prabhupada says here, for those who path of renunciation is based on a frustrated life. So that means that he knows the duration of life is very short. He's achieved nothing that's going to remain with him when he leaves this body, and therefore all of his activities are frustration. This is the general situation of the karmi, the fruitive worker. They work hard all their lives, and at the end of it, what have they got to show? Nothing. And then they die. I remember our Sridhar Swami. He used to have a sticker on his suitcase. Life is tough, and then you die. So that's pretty well a good summary of material existence. Life is tough, and then you die. And then where you go next, another unknown destination. Even if you go to the woods, you go to the forest. Can somebody help me? Oh, okay, we're okay. If someone does get out as far as going into the jungles or forests, and somehow or another, unknown to anybody, he quits this body, but he's not leaving his frustrations behind. Those frustrations will continue into the next life, and into the next life, and into the next life. It will never end. That's material existence. It's like one of those continuous loops, video or audio loops. You keep going round and round samsara. That's all. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Nothing to show for it at the end. So still, although he has nothing to show for it, what he does have, that is coveted by his family members. If one's been a householder or a grihasta, he has something accumulated. Maybe some money in the bank, maybe some land, like that, or some relationships. And they want to hang on to that, even though the person who's about to depart doesn't want it anymore, but still he's harassed by the family members. Oh, give us this, give us that. I remember years ago, one of my brothers, he went to see my mother, and she was a widow by that time. So he started complaining that you've given everybody else something, you haven't given me anything. So he more or less forced her into surrendering some of the items that she'd accumulated in her house, and he took them away for his own use. Because anyway, she's still alive, my mum. She's 98. But living a frustrated life, frankly. No help, no help even if it's available can be given. When you're that old, there's nothing you can do. You're at the hands of others. So this way there's this entanglement in material nature, and there's no semblance of good fortune in such a life. It's all just a waste of breath, frankly. Of course, that's how the length of time that we have in this body is measured, by the number of breaths that one takes. Yeah, there's no fixed number of years or like that, like calendar time, but it's based on how many breaths you've taken, and when your last breath is up, away you go. That's it, finished, gone. So we have to be very careful with this human life. We don't know how many breaths we have. We have this horrible entanglement, which at the end of the day is only fit for frustrating the purposes of the soul. There's a doctor who in the 1960s, she did some interviews and studies of people who were terminally ill. They wanted to find out how should they live? Is there anything that they can do for them? So they interviewed all these different people, and they noticed a certain kind of pattern that was emerging from people that had accepted or had been at least told that there was no hope for them and that they were definitely going to die. not in the sense that everybody's definitely going to die, we are, but in the immediate situation, they've got some illness, nobody can do anything to help them, and so you'd become terminally ill. So they did these interviews. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think her name was. So they did this study. It was quite revolutionary because nobody had actually interviewed people that had been told that they're going to die. So they got a whole bunch of interviews. They noticed this pattern. So an acronym is DABDA, denial, DABDA, anger, denial, anger, balance, depression, and then acceptance. So DABDA it's called. That means that you go through this sequence. People don't like to hear that they're going to die immediately. So denial, no, it couldn't be me. I'm at least going to live another 4 years or 8 years or whatever it is. And then when they realize that actually nothing can be done, you definitely are going, then they get angry. What have I done to deserve this? Why am I suffering? What's the cause of my problems? So they get angry with it. Then when they realize that their anger's also not going to do them any good, then from anger that comes this kind of balance or bargaining. Okay, I'm going to die, but try and give me an extra couple of years. Prabhupada tells the story often about a friend of his, or at least a client, because Prabhupada was a pharmacist, so he was dealing with medicines and disease and all these things. So he had one friend that came, and he was dying. He'd been told, you're going to die. So he was pleading with the doctors, just give me 4 more years. Yeah, let me have 4 more years. I can finish up all my work, all my family affairs. I can situate everybody properly, and then I'll go. So Prabhupada called him a muda. You can't bargain. Death is death. It's when it comes, it comes. You can't do anything about that. Yamaraj will come with his Yamadutas, and then you'll be gone. That's another symptom also, terminal restlessness. When you're in the hospital, you're about to leave, the Yamadutas come. If you haven't had a pious life, and they start appearing and haunting, the person's about to die. And so what does the hospital do? They pump them full of drugs, keep them quiet. Yeah, they give them so many drugs, they become completely doped up. They can't speak anymore. They're like living vegetables. So in that way, then the hospital, the doctors and nurses, they think, oh, now he's peaceful. He's not peaceful. The Yamadutas are there. And what happens is that there are many cases. One of our devotees in Australia, her father, he liked to go hunting. So he used to shoot rabbits. So when he came to the point of his death, then she went there to be with him for a few, whatever days he had left. And he was being haunted by these gigantic rabbits that were coming and chewing him up, because rabbits have got big teeth. So they were chewing him up, and he was yelling and screaming, so they pumped him full of drugs so that he couldn't say anything. Oh, now he's peaceful. Not peaceful. The Yamadutas come, and all the entities that we've sinned against, that we've harmed or damaged in one way or another, they come and they haunt that person, and they become very frustrated and afraid. So that's terminal restlessness. The doctors have a name for it. So in that way then, there's no happiness, because this devotee, she said after 2 or 3 days, it suddenly dawned on her that it was the Yamadutas that this her father was seeing. So she told him, next time they come, you chant Hare Krishna. So he learned the mantra, and then sure enough they came again, but he started chanting, and then they all went away. And then he was actually peaceful, not from being doped up or drugged up, but he actually became peaceful on the mental and more subtle platforms. So anyway, the point is, Dabda. So after bargaining with the doctor, give me 4 more years and then I'll go. No, sir. When the time comes, you must go. So then depression, when he realizes nothing can be done, he can't buy his way out of it, he can't pay somebody off to keep things going for at least a couple of more years, then depression. Nothing can be done, they become forlorn, and they're just waiting to leave, that's all. And then at the end of that, if they're lucky, they reach the last phase, dabda, acceptance. The last part is acceptance. They finally accept, yes, I'm going to die, I don't want to be in this rotten body anymore, I'm going to go on, so they accept it. And then they become peaceful a little bit. Then they become peaceful. So it's a useful analysis, in as much as seeing the material side of it. Yeah, we all come to this point. We have to die at some point or another, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop that. So what to do after that, that's the question. Are we meant to be just here for 70 or 80 years, living a miserable life, and then at the end yield everything and go off somewhere unknown? Or can we do something so that we can actually get some benefit? We have to die, that's a fact. But we need to be able to deal with that and get a better destination than the one that we've just come from. So what that destination is, we don't know. But here, because Prabhupada's saying that Vidura was a good brother to Dhritarashtra, he could instruct him. And because he had a good relationship, they were trusted. Yeah, he trusted Vidura. Everybody knew Vidura was very fair-minded. Of course, he was Yamaraj himself, but that's another point. But still, by good association, Dhritarashtra could achieve at least a worthwhile end. Because he was advised, because he wasn't a full-on devotee, as we say, he was advised to just go out in the forest and just wait until there's a forest fire. You fast, yeah, like Ranikashipu, down to the bones, and then, you know, your time's up. So that may come in different ways, forest fire or whatever, and you let go. You have no attachments. And the important thing is that, just like with these people that they tested, following that sequence, their situation can be relieved if they know somebody who actually knows the science of the soul. Yeah, you can come to a point of accepting that your material setup, your material body, mental, intellectual, physical, that's only going to be with you for a certain amount of time. So you can accept that. But if you don't have information about where you're going next, still it's a frustration. So we need to educate or be educated as to the real purpose of this human form. Then when this time comes, as it will for everybody, you can't eat anymore, you can't sleep anymore, or whatever the problem is, disease, old age, or just sheer old age. But at some point or another, you're going to leave. So what are you going? Is there anything that we can take with us? And the answer is yes. We can take with us the knowledge and wisdom that has been passed on by sages and saints throughout the centuries, for millennia. They know what is the purpose of life. They know how to deal with it. There's no anxiety when death comes. There's no frustration. Yeah. There's no relatives and others, who want to rob you of your wealth. You give all of that up. You let it all go. All right, let them take whatever they like. Yeah, that mood should be there. But we have to know where we're going. We want to have a better place to go to. Yeah. So that better place is in devotional service. This is, Prabhupada says here that he uses a nice phrase. Right. This is the path of renunciation, which is based on a frustrated life. So we want to avoid that frustration. So by taking up pure devotional service, by taking direction from the liberated souls like Vidura, then we can come to understand how to best utilize this human life, and there's no frustration. Yeah. A devotee, somebody who's actually in devotional service, does not have to go physically to the forest. Yeah. Spiritually, they're already in the forest. Yeah, nobody knows what the situation of a devotee is, what his relationship with the Supreme Lord is. But we can practice devotional service in such a way that when we get to this point, when we leave, we're clear. We're not frustrated. And we have no doubts or hallucinations of being that we can be happy in this material world. It's not possible. And one who is a devotee, they're already beyond this frustration. They don't have any problems or any frustrations because they know they have their relationship with Krishna, and that will continue on under any circumstance. So one has to practice how to fix the mind, how to fix the self at the lotus feet of the Supreme Self. When we get that shelter, then we have no fear. No one will come, Yamadutas or anything else. But rather, one can leave very peacefully or very joyfully. And we've seen that practically in our society. Nowadays you're seeing it more and more. We're all popping off. Yeah, at least 1 or 2 a week now, I see. My God brothers and God sisters, they're all gradually leaving. So, where to? That's the point. What have we gained from this life? That's what we have to look at. I was watching last night an interview with Shama Sundar Prabhu from San Francisco. So he was speaking for about an hour. He's got a new book. Well, he's got a book which is in 3 parts, and the third part is the final one. So he's just completed that. So he, when he finally came to understand death is coming very close, what can I do for myself? What can I do for others? Because he was trained by Srila Prabhupada right from the very beginning how to work as a devotee and how to work for the benefit of others. So when he got into his early 70s, I guess now he's 80. That's an unimaginable thing for us. We have got godbrothers that are 80 years old. Anyway, when he got to that late stage in his life, he'd had a liver transplant, if you remember. Went through that whole trauma, and then still it didn't get rid of the disease that he had. So many different things happened. But at the end of it, he realized he wanted to leave something, Prabhupada's legacy, for future generations. So he sat down and he's written, his time about his times with Srila Prabhupada. And it's a wonderful tale. Yeah, it gives you hope when you you read the departures or the activities of the devotees. Then it gives you real hope that there's something useful to be had, from your endeavor. So he worked very hard. He's got his books out. There's many books now that are coming out about Srila Prabhupada. Previously we had Prabhupada's books, but we didn't have the books about Srila Prabhupada. Now in the last 20 years or so, there's been a lot that has started, a lot of devotees, they've realized now, it's hit home. I've only got a few years left, maybe. So how to make the best use of that. So writing about and describing the qualities and glories, activities of the devotees, that's the topmost platform. If you can do that, if you can die thinking of the pure devotees and they're hoping for their association, there's no frustration, there's no anxiety, no dabda. Yeah. I had actually in I think 1978, 79, I was in Sydney, and I got a phone call one morning from a gentleman. He was doing some studies on death and dying, and he wanted to know, he mentioned about this study that had been done by this Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, this Dabda, and he said, have you seen anything like that, like in your Hare Krishna society? Because he realized we're a bit different from ordinary people. So maybe they have a different experience or angle of vision on what happens at the time of death. So unfortunately I couldn't help him out because I said, none of us are old enough to die yet. In other words, we were still in our 20s and 30s. So we actually had no experience, at least I had no experience anyway, of anybody dying in our society. We were all young and we thought we were, fit and strong. We're going to be going for a long time yet, so I couldn't really give him any information. Now I could. Now we've seen a lot of devotees that are leaving, so where are they going? How do they handle death? Yeah. There's a story I like to tell about my god sister, Rasagya Dasi. Rasagya was a part of the Vaikuntha Players. They were a drama troupe that were based in New York. Prabhupada liked their portrayals of Ramayana and so many other things. So Rasagya, she was a key dramatist. So many years later, she got to the point where she was dying. She got cancer. And she was in a city where there were not many devotees, maybe only one or two. So there was some debate, should we take her to Vrindavan in India? But that's a big endeavor, it's going to cost a lot of money, but there's nobody to look after her, she stays here. So they were debating what to do with her, where to go. And then she had a dream, and Krishna told her, Vrindavan is in your heart. So as soon as she heard that, that was enough. Then she stayed where she was. She left the body very successfully with people, devotees there, a few devotees chanting. And there'll be a glorious destination, not an unknown one, but Vrindavan is in your heart. That's the whole point, to realize that we're always eternally connected through service with the Supreme Lord. And your heart becomes, clear. There's no obfuscation, there's no fog, mental fog or anything. There's no Yamadutas to come and disturb. You we've seen that so many devotees, they've been given the opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead because of the service that they've performed. Yeah, how do you get that? How do you qualify to get into that position where you realize that Vrindavan is in your heart? That's done by service. And the more we serve the desires and aims and objectives of the pure devotees, then the clearer the heart becomes, the more happy and jubilant the devotee becomes and become fearless. Devotees have no fear of dying. Living and dying, same thing. We don't have to go to the jungle and maybe get devoured by some wild animals or burnt to a crisp in a forest fire. Rather, we just keep on doing what we can do up to the end, and we're confident that Krishna will be there. We've had quite a few experiences, especially here in Mayapur and in Vrindavan, with devotees. They have an ambition, they want to leave their bodies in the Dham. So that's nice, they can do that also. So being in the Dham, doing some service, that prepares us for this next stage. It must come. We're not going to be here for very long. It's a very short period actually. So we have to practice with what we can, in whatever way we can. It doesn't matter whether one's washing the pots or dressing the deities or out on book distribution. Ultimately, the first aim is to purify one's own heart, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. When the heart becomes cleansed, then we see things as they are. So there's no lamentation. I've just recently published the last volume of my diary that I kept when I was with Prabhupada. And this particular volume is about the last 6 weeks that Prabhupada had before he left us in Vrindavan. So going through all that material and seeing Prabhupada's moods, it's, it was a wonderful thing. I mean, horrible in one sense, but knowing, Prabhupada was so exemplary in his practice of devotional service, having that opportunity to serve with him, that gives us a lot of hope. And as Prabhupada said, this body, what is it? Just skin and bones. That was the condition of his physical body at the end. He made an interesting comment that when you haven't got a body, just skin and bones, then what is there to be proud of? So that's something we have to learn, how to be detached. We rely on our relationship with Krishna, that's all, nothing else. We had various doctors coming in and going out. None of them could do anything. Prabhupada was just actually staying there just by the force of his pure devotion to Krishna, and to show his disciples how to live. And he said, this is the final, lesson, how to die, how to leave this body in the proper way. So we're not advising go to the jungle. Yeah. There's enough wild animals living in the cities without going and mixing with the ones that are in the forests. People have no idea about what life is really for, and therefore they die frustrated. Whatever they're doing is lost, it's all taken away from them, and then destination unknown. But for the devotees, they have no such anxieties. The destination is Vrindavan is in your heart. When the time comes to leave this bag of bones and stool and blood, then where will you go? You'll go back to Godhead, to be with Krishna in practicing the same service that he practiced whilst he was in this body. So that's our hope, that's our prayer that we work for. Purify ourselves, and if we can help purify others by spreading Krishna consciousness, that will be even more pleasing to Guru and Krishna. So anyway, does anybody, I'm going to finish here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for the class. You mentioned we have to take advantage of being in the Dham and practice sincerely whatever we are doing, be it either washing pots or any other service, do it very nicely.
Can you speak up a little?
Yes, you were saying that being in the Dham, we have to take advantage and practice Krishna consciousness sincerely, be it like either washing pots or any other, even menial service, but we have to be sincere and do it nicely. From your experience of serving Prabhupada, especially during that last month of October when you were there, you saw what Prabhupada was going through and practically what Prabhupada lived for and died for or left his body for. Can you share your realization on we have to be somebody special to receive, like you had this unlimited fortune of being with Prabhupada and serving him closely. This is a special position, of course, and not everybody gets that. And what are your realization on how to do something special for Prabhupada? Because when we stand out in a special way, when we live for what Prabhupada lived for, then we can get his full mercy. We can get some mercy, but the question, like you were saying, so many are leaving their bodies, but the question is where they are going.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you that some people had some special kind of service, as if that gives them, some more advantage than the devotee that's washing the pots and is not known anywhere around the world except in his one little area of service. Prabhupada used to engage devotees according to their capability. Yeah, it wasn't artificially done, but when you do any kind of work, it becomes obvious after a little while you know, what your capabilities are, and then the guru's business is to, Prabhupada said, is to understand the psychology of the disciple and then engage them in service according to that nature that they have. So it's not, you know, of course, you know, Prabhupada had thousands of disciples, and for sure he didn't personally meet with each and every one of them and assign them some service. But actually, even if you never met Prabhupada, if you're engaged in the activities of devotional life that he set forth, then you get the same benefit. It's not that, you know, if you never saw Prabhupada, you can't get the advantage. We may have had some advantage in some respects that we could go to Prabhupada and, you know, put questions before him, get more kind of fine-tuning, if you like, for the activities that we were performing. But in the ultimate, what Prabhupada gave was a structure that could accommodate unlimited numbers of people. You know, the sadhana that we do, the organization that we call ISKCON, you won't find that in the histories of even the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, to some degree, but there's no like preaching force. You know, Prabhupada trained us up to be preachers, and that preaching means you're either directly dealing with people, or you're supporting those who are directly dealing with them, like the book distributors. So it's not that, you know, Prabhupada said, okay, the best way to please me is by distributing my books, but that doesn't mean that, you know, other devotees, you know, a mechanic or a cook or pot washer or whatever, it doesn't mean that they don't get a chance for participating in that preaching work. They're the support crew. Without a support crew, then, you know, it's difficult to see how things can go on. So all of these different activities, Prabhupada laid them out in such a way that he could literally accommodate unlimited numbers of people in them. You know, the whole sadhana that we do every morning, get up, you know, early, take a bath, go to Mangalarati, chant your rounds, go to Bhagavatam class, greet the deities, you know, 4 or 5 hours every day. It's pretty intensive. Or it seems that way to somebody that's not relished the benefit of doing that. But if you join in, you know, with these activities, then you very quickly realize that you're also connected. You're getting the same benefit. It's not that, you know, if somebody's cooking for the devotees, or somebody's cooking for the deities, or somebody's cooking for Srila Prabhupada himself, that there's any difference. You know, there's no, I mean, devotees are special compared to non-devotees. To find people that are willing to just, you know, give, I would mention about Shama Sundar Prabhu. You know, Prabhupada flew in on January the 1st to 1967 into San Francisco, and Shama Sundar and Mukunda and others were there to greet him at the airport, and from that moment on their lives were completely surrendered to Prabhupada. It's quite remarkable, actually, how he was able to do that, just by flying in and then, you know, apparently just a kind of frail 70-year-old gentleman, very knowledgeable, but, you know, with no assets, no, you know, all he had was himself, basically, and what he knew about his relationship with Krishna, and what he learned from his Guru Maharaj about how to preach the message. So Prabhupada could do some remarkable things. He did do remarkable things. We may not be able to do what Prabhupada did, but if we do something which is connected and, you know, is directly authorized and presented by Prabhupada and by the predecessor acharyas, like Narottam Das Thakur is mentioned here, if you follow that path, you're sure to be successful. So who is more successful? It's not a question of more or not, you know. If one's not a Sanskrit scholar, it doesn't mean that you can't understand the Bhagavatam. we learned the Bhagavatam, the real meaning of the Bhagavatam, from the person Bhagavad. So Prabhupada was presenting, everything that he knew and distilling all the things that had been presented by the previous acharyas into something which could be of use to the fallen souls of this Kali Yuga. People are very, very fallen in this age. They commit horrible crimes against other living beings. Prabhupada knew how to drag us out from that. So, being special, you get a special opportunity. That's another thing. But anybody that's fully engaged in devotional service, and I'm talking specifically now about our line, if they do what Prabhupada requested, you'll get the same result. So, I don't know whether, nobody's in that sense more special than anyone else. If you've surrendered your life, then it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, it will be success.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. It's a beautiful answer. I just want to clarify, I didn't mean to say that by being physically close to Prabhupada, you become special, but you could serve Prabhupada in a different way and not become special. But my question was basically how to get Prabhupada's full mercy doing what you're doing. That was my question, but you answered it nicely. Thank you.
How?
How do you get Prabhupada's full mercy by doing what you're doing, whether it be even any menial service? But
the full mercy is already there. You just have to tap into it. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you.
If somebody's sincere, they work hard. It doesn't matter, what their so-called skills may be. The point is, body, mind, and words have to be surrendered to the Guru, so that he can act through you. And that's one thing that Prabhupada taught us, that when you're out preaching, there's so many people that are coming, you want to transfer what you know to them, they become devotees, and in that way everything grows. So we've just got to be active on behalf of Prabhupada and Krishna, and we see amazing things happen. I mean, if you look at ISKCON now, from that 1967, Shyam Sundar was saying, and now when I look and see what's come out from what we had was nothing. There were literally not, there was no practicing devotees except Srila Prabhupada. He was the only person. But by following him, they very quickly learned how to render devotional service in a way that was pleasing to Krishna. So under that proper guidance, but their qualification was their sincerity. And I saw that many times. Prabhupada took into consideration the sincerity of a person, but not necessarily whether they were successful or not in executing a particular, desire or wish, but that they try to do. That's all. It just needs that, open honesty and open-heartedness. Be surrendered, or do your best to surrender to Guru and Krishna. Everything else will come by their mercy. So that's what we were relying on. All right. It's getting late.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, one question more.
Prabhuji, I read the purport, and from the purport actually I have a query. Self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for the family, and if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, he is called undisturbed or dhira. My question is that if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, being a grihastha, I know that I should or one should fulfill his duty. So if he wants to fulfill his duty, if he forgets, how he can do the duty? My query.
What do you mean by duty?
Duty means if I have a family, so I must fulfill my duty towards my family members. If I forget, then how I can fulfill?
It depends. Depends on the family members. It depends on the individual, what their relationship is. If you're a member of a family where they're all devotees, or they're appreciating devotional service, then there's no need to do anything else. You can stay with your family. I asked Prabhupada once, does every man have to take sannyas when he gets beyond 50 years old? I mean, in his books he says that. At the age of 50 you should leave home and go out and preach. Well, Prabhupada said, not if he's Krishna conscious. If one is Krishna conscious, then it doesn't matter. You live with the family, or you live in a temple, or some other place. But if you're practicing devotional service in good association, you don't have to give that up. Yeah, of course it's easy to say that, probably a little bit harder to do. But in general, that's, for a devotee, there's no requirement, go and live in the forest, or we're already, beyond that stage, that frustrated life. We've gone way beyond that by being devotees. However, if you've got family members that interfere or don't support you in your devotional activities, as Prabhupada experienced himself, then there's a time when you have to leave, whether they like it or not. There's an interesting conversation I was reading the other day. Prabhupada was in Bombay, and some gentleman had come for darshan, so he made some suggestion about this and that. So Prabhupada said, that's fine. He said, you're very eager to advise others, but why don't you do it? He said, but when we ask you to do it, oh no, well, I have to get my daughter married. And the people that were in the room all started laughing, because everybody in India knows this is one of the primary, objectives of the family life, is to get your daughters married. All the money's going for that. So Prabhupada said, he said, I was thinking I have to get my children married, and then I can full-time preach. He said, but I was frustrated. I was stopped by my wife. He said the family wouldn't agree. I was trying to get the daughter married, and the family wouldn't agree. He said family means his wife. She wouldn't agree. So he got to a point, he said, all right, to hell with it. He said that. That was what he said. Then I thought, the hell with it, I'm going. Now's the time, whether they like it or not. So he left. He never got that daughter married. She died a couple of years ago. In her 80s, I think she is now. But she was kept basically by Prabhupada's wife, that youngest daughter. She was kept as a maidservant, because as long as she was not married, she couldn't move out of the house. So they kept her as a, maidservant, practically. That was the mentality of Prabhupada's wife. So Prabhupada himself, he got to a certain point. He did take Vanaprastha, actually, when he went to live in Jhansi. He separated from the family. They always tried to keep their connection with him. When Prabhupada came back from America to start preaching in India with ISKCON, that was in August 1970. As soon as he arrived, he was presented with a solicitor's letter demanding money. Otherwise, we're going to, this is from the family, we're going to expose to the public what you really are. You've dumped your family on the street, you don't give them, you're rolling in money from the West, but you're not giving your family members any support. So this was a letter from M.M. Day. He was the oldest son. Because when Prabhupada took sannyas, then the responsibility for the family came to the oldest son. They all know it. Sannyas means there's no more social contact. So then the oldest son, then they have to take care of the family. So he resented it like anything, that Prabhupada had just walked off, gone off, preaching Krishna consciousness, and not left them with any assets. So as soon as Prabhupada came back after he had a little success, then immediately M.M. Day was harassing him. We want money. So he demanded, you give us 3 lakhs of rupees, otherwise we're going to expose you in the newspaper. So Prabhupada, to hell with it. I have other things that I have to do. So that was his mood. So you have to judge and see what the situation is. All right?
And therefore, both are possible, Prabhuji. Being in Krishna consciousness and fulfilling the duties, both are possible simultaneously. Why to forget
Well,
them?
why don't you make being Krishna consciousness your only duty? And why are they mutually, they go together? For us, family, no family, is if you're practicing devotional service, that's the whole point of it. If the family is inimical, that's another thing. Yeah, then you can leave. All right. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.